All of our files are free and will remain free. If you like the show, you can show support by donating $1 to help with expenses. Just use the PayPal link on our website, YouTube channel, or Facebook page. Thanks.
Welcome back to part 2 of this Shakespeare mystery. We're talking with the code master, permit me to say that, Peter Amundsen from Norway, who has made this huge discovery that we're just starting to scratch the surface of when we're unraveling it now for you. Remember, when we talk about things here, it's just examples, it's just a little bit of the whole puzzle. Otherwise, we would have to have like a 10-hour program to try to cover it all. So anyway, we're in now. We've established at this point that there are certain brilliant people like Bacon and Johnson and Neville, and they have put some codes in that indicates Rosicrucian, and Rosicrucians indicate the lost tomb, the treasure of Father CRC, which reminds us of course, Knight Templars mythos. And I guess we'll take it from there. But by the way, Peter, I just want to ask you one fact question about your codes. In the beginning, we were discussing if it was coincidental, how deliberate this was. But let's be honest, it's not as if code experts hasn't looked at this. Take, for instance, this Sigmund, or what his name is, this Hungarian, they call him the most intelligent man in the world. What did he say?
He was very pleased with what I had written in the book. I sent him the book, which was published in Sweden at the time. He's a Swedish-Hungarian guy, so he read it in Swedish. And he called me when I was in the supermarket, and he was making my day by saying that he was so agreeing, and I had inspired him a lot. So, but then you have other people like a guy called Barry, who is he's an expert in Bacon and Shakespeare, and he has a doctorate in Shakespeare and Bacon because he has written that the Tempest must have been written by Bacon. And he is also a puzzle maker and intelligent guy, no doubt. But I presented him with the Apodrosicross, and he said that no, it's not a perfect 3-4-5 triangle, because to him the slope wasn't 37 degrees, it was 37.1.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean it's on that level. So if you refuse to accept it, then you will never accept it. So even if it's there.
Yeah, let's hope that a margin of 0.1 is tolerated. I mean, back then they didn't have computers, so it was by hand. But the first one, what was his name?
Yola Sigmund.
Yeah, and he's a cryptograph. What's his profession or expertise?
He has a perfect background for it, because he is a top-notch Freemason. And he is an architect, and he is a typographer, and for a living he makes codes and ciphers. He's so intelligent. He has an IQ of 192, so he writes these IQ puzzles that you find in newspapers and in books, and he's chairman of Mensa or something. So
I see.
Yeah, so this was the man that I sought out, because he could bless my findings. If anyone could see what I saw, then Yola would be the man, and I was spot on.
Isn't it possible to take your codes, put it into a computer, put the Shakespearean stuff in there, and just get out a result, like a Donald Duck computing?
I think that to write that software, you would have to I think it's impossible.
But what about just the statistical verification? There must be numbers here.
Yeah, there are, but it's astronomical. But then again, you have coincidences that are astronomical. So
yeah, but it's not like you have one find that is astronomical and the rest is trying to force the material to fit your find. It's the opposite. It's that every damned find we can say that it's the internet, is anomalous, is blowing the probabilities statistically, right?
I think they are, yes. To me, they are. And what is important is that they all contribute to construct a whole picture.
Yeah.
So it's not pointing in different directions. It all adds to really lock one picture into place.
Okay, so let's follow this picture then.
Yes, we need to follow it. The elements we have the 3, 4, 5 triangle.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Rosicrucians that we just accept that they are involved, and that the Rosicrucians encourage us to look for a place.
Right.
So how can we find that place? That is, of course, the big question. There are 2 contemporary Shakespeare publications that are important. You have the plays that were published in the first folio, but you also have poems called the sonnets. And in the sonnets, which have the publishing date of 1609, which I put a question mark at, I will not go into this now, but the first page there, first printed page, without just saying that here are the Shakespeare sonnets published by so and so, there is this, not to the reader, but to the author, to the only begetter. And on this curious poem, which is it's set up in a geometric way. You have 2 triangles on top of each other, and in the margins you will see that you have a repetition of the TWO. So we have 2 also here.
Right.
But you have more letters, of course. You have the 2 is reversed. It's so OWT.
Mm-hmm.
And before the O you have a B, and then you have an H following the T. So you have got 5 letters: B, O, W, T, H.
Right.
And on top you have TT, MAP, TT map. And if you're looking for a place, then you need a map. So what kind of map is this? TT, what is a TT map?
It could mean the treasure, TT.
Yes, because in the sonnets,
Yeah.
you do not have page numbers. You just have the numbers
Right.
of the sonnets themselves.
Right.
So then you need to go to sonnet number 2. And sonnet number 2 has a number as word number 2.
Right.
And that is 40.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go 2 and 40 words down into the sonnets, you will find a pair of words, both beginning with T. And these are the only TT couples in this sonnet. So they are not all over the place. But
not just on the page, but on the whole sonnet.
On this sonnet, the sonnet is just 14 lines, so not that many words. But at least in this sonnet, it's the only TT pair. And as word number 42, you have treasure. So you have the treasure. And that fits very much to the picture.
So one of the words was the, and the other word was treasure when you look at the sonnet.
You have the word 2. You go to sonnet 2. Word 2 in sonnet 2 is 40. And 2 and 40 words down into the same sonnet, you find treasure. And the word preceding it is the.
Ah, right. So that's a confirmation. The treasure.
The treasure.
Yeah.
And the reason why 2 and 40 is important is that I know it from somewhere else, because symbolically it represents creation in the same way that 144 out of 168 is creation with the hours of the creative week. God created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th.
Mm.
And you have 6 by 7, which is 42. So the treasure map. And then we have just to pause that a little bit, because we need to take the 3, 4, 5 triangle one step further, because we didn't find 53 once, we found it twice.
Of course.
So the hypothesis is that we need 2 3-4-5 triangles. And this also matches the age of Father RC. He didn't become 53 years old. He was 106 years old. So if we put these two triangles next to each other, if we glue the four sides together, so that you have one united four side, and you have 2 3 sides and 2 5 sides, the hypotenuse, then you will have half of what is a wonderful version of the square and compasses emblem of the Freemasons. And we know that the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians are rumored to have the same source. But the Freemasons officially began later on, and some say that Rosicrucians developed into Freemasonry. But I say that the early Freemasonry was organized Rosicrucianism.
Yeah, and people were even identified both as Masons and Rosicrucians at the same time.
Yes, so the Rosicrucians, the Rosicrucianism was the philosophical foundation, but nobody were Rosicrucians, but many were Freemasons. So Freemasons, they were the club, the membership, the brotherhood, but the invisible part was the Rosicrucians.
I'd call them an elite segment within Masonry.
Yeah, but we don't know who were the Rosicrucians. We can say that maybe Michael Meyer was a Rosicrucian, but we don't know. Andrea was a Rosicrucian, but he never confessed to it. So nobody confessed to being a Rosicrucian. But we know people who were Freemasons, like Elias Ashmole in the 1640s, and he had his own translations of the Fama and the Confessio that he had made himself. So
but hey, he even created something called Invisible College. It turned into the Royal Society, but that's taken straight out of Rosicrucian law, the Invisible College.
And you have Descartes to claim not to be a Rosicrucian because, hey, you can see me, Rosicrucians are invisible.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So I think that the Rosicrucians, they were invisible. The Masons, they were...
As they were in the Shakespearean manuscript, right? Anonymous.
Yes, you need a strong loop or looking glass, a magnifying glass to see it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so just to make a long story short here, we establish Masonic square and compasses emblem based on 2 3-4-5 triangles, and then you have 2 isosceles triangles at the bottom. So you need a square at the bottom, and this makes 6x7 setup because you have the 3 in the bottom, and then you enter the 3-4-5 triangle, the 4 side there. So you have the 3 plus 4. So you have 7 steps moving up, and you have 6 units going across. So this is basically the map structure that we are looking for. So when we find a TT map, then that is 6x7, which is 42, the treasure map. And the acrostic, which is called, because if you take the leftmost letter of a line and read up or down, that is called an acrostic. And if you continue the acrostic, TT map and the B, O, W, T, and the H, then you have the first part of building the map more into something that is useful, because you have the pattern, but you don't have the names. You don't know where shall we put this emblem, the 6x7 square and compass. So what can we do with it?
Peter, pardon me, but you kind of lost me, and probably also most listeners then. Could you just explain to us what this BOWT is relevant for?
I'm coming to it because I'm saying that this is a name of something that is most useful on a map.
Okay.
This is the Greek version of spelling Boötis.
Ah, okay, I get it. Now I'm with you again. Okay.
Yes. So you have TT map, and then you have Boötis, which is a constellation, a star sign. Right. You don't know where to put it, so what shall we do with it? But at least you have one element to put into the puzzle. You're constructing a map.
Right. Did you realize this had anything to do with a map at this point when you saw that word?
I'm giving you the listener-friendly version, my friend. So,
Okay.
what I did, I spent years.
I see. Okay, let's take the abbreviated version. I agree.
I'm not having 192 IQ, so.
But you have 192 in intuition, so that's
And my
solid.
intuition is and this is something that I would like to recommend, that if you take your intuition and listen to it and give it the chance, you respect it, then it can produce magic.
I agree with that.
So you have to develop the inner listening.
Right. And for those who now are using the outer listening, take them further. We have established that you found the constellation, actually.
Yes. So I see that we have the constellation, and but this is just one. But the poem is the sign of TT. We don't know who is TT. What is TT? But there is a play in the first folio that has the initials TT. And that is the first play, the one that has page 2 on it. So this is the Tempest.
The Tempest, of course.
And the first word in the Tempest is boatswain.
Wow.
And it is written without an A. It's written boatswain. And when you go back to the sonnets, you will see that this To the Only Begetter poem has indeed WAIN as well. So you have the boatswain there, and you have the boatswain in the Tempest beginning it. And now you have two constellations, because the Wain is Charles Wain, the Big Dipper, or the Big Bear Ursa Major. And then I went to my Oxford English Dictionary, and I looked for Wain, because Wain, I didn't know that much English, so I had to look it up. So I said, so it's a constellation. Wow, it's a constellation. Oh, it's near Borealis. And it was a quote there that the Borealis and Wain was part of the same sentence. So I thought it was just fantastic that you have Borealis and you have Wain, and Shakespeare put this as the first word in the first play in the first folio, and which has page 2 with F. Bacon and the cipher. That is fantastic. And then looking further in the first folio, I noticed that Wain has been written once in the whole big book. 908 pages and 900,000 words. Wain is used once.
That's significant.
Do you remember which page that was?
No, I forgot.
That was the second page with Bacon, page 53.
53, of
in
course.
Histories.
Of course.
There you have Wain. You have Borealis just to the opposite side of it. So you have Borealis and you have Wain on the same side. And there is beautiful geometry tied to this, which is impossible to delineate on the radio. So,
no, but is it the one with the Tree of Life?
No, it's the one with the I am wheel.
Right, okay.
You will see this in the video. The video is free to watch, costs you nothing.
Just follow the link, people, and it's very entertaining. Very entertaining. 4
episodes of 53 minutes, lo and behold. And some people say, aha, you have 53 minutes, but I'll promise you that.
I never thought about that. You're right.
The director, he worked his ass off to try to make it 53 minutes. So this is done on purpose.
Yeah, but not so sophisticated, I dare say, as in the Shakespearean play, though. But hey, did you put your work with other codes deliberately as a game?
We have some. There is a code in the ebook, and there is also some an homage in the Norwegian organist book. But the ebook has a cipher, so you're welcome to try to find it.
Okay, we'll get back to your book at the end. Just continue the journey with us.
Okay, so we have the TT map, which is the square and compasses 6x7. We have Borealis and we have Wain. And we see that Wain is printed on page 53. Yes, and we have other angles here. We have the 37 degrees angles as well. So I'll go for the first page 37 to see if there is some kind of match here, because we have 53 and both this, and maybe there is something on 37. So the first 37 is in the comedies, and as an acrostic, I see Albereo, which is one of the stars in the Cygnus, the swan in the sky, the Northern Cross. I mean, I find another star, page 37.
Yeah.
And I turn to the next page 37. I see that as a telestic, which is the far side of the line, you have Deneb tied to the word boots.
Mm-hmm.
And that is another star in the swan. And the swan will be related in a 3-4-5 triangle setup with Bootes and the Wain, because Bootes is also a word for the biggest star in Bootes, which is called Arcturus, which some people just call Bootes. It's a big star.
So now you're starting to identify particular stars.
Yeah.
This sounds like something you can actually use practically.
Yes, you can, because if you take Arcturus, which is the Alpha Bootes, and you take the middle of the Wain inside of that Big Dipper in the middle of it, and then you go to Deneb, which is the Alpha Cygni, the biggest star of the Swan. Then you have a right angle. If you has the viewpoint over the Big Dipper, then it will be a right angle. Because of the spherical shape of the sky, it's impossible to make it fit everywhere. But if you have a central focus on the Wain, then it is a right angle, and the sides are 3 and 4, and then it follows that the hypotenuse will be 5. So you have a 3-4-5 triangle in the sky, and this is very promising. And we also know that that Ben Jonson, in this poem that I referred to, where you have fame and confess as word 17 and then plus 3, he calls Shakespeare the sweet swan of Avon. And then it continues, but stay, I see thee in the hemisphere advanced and made a constellation there. Shine forth, thou star of poets. So he says that Shakespeare is a star in the swan.
Yeah, but wow, it's like saying to people, hey, the Shakespearean plays has something to do with this constellation in the sky. I mean, you can't say it more clear than that.
No. And then you have the page number in the book that gives you the degrees in the setup, but you only get the 3-4-5 triangle here, because you need more, because you have the whole square and compass emblem, so you need to fill it out. And then Ben Jonson enters the stage, because he has written about the Rosicrucians. And in the same year that the first folio was published, 1623, his library burnt down, and he, in his agony, wrote an execration upon Vulcan, the fire god. And in this poem, he writes about acrostics and telestics and etiostics and different kind of games or cipher methods, if you like. And he talks about the Rosy Cross. And this is what he says: the chimera of the Rosy Cross. And we also know that in the foreword of the first English translation of the Fame and the Confession of the Rosy Cross in 1652, the translator here talks about this beautiful chimera, the Rosy Cross. So what is the chimera? And the chimera is a goat with a lion's head and a serpent's or dragon's tail. And these are animals, and the animals are found in the sky. So lo and behold, around this 3-4-5 triangle in the sky with the Bootes and the Wain and the Swan, you have the lion's head just below the Wain, the head of Leo, and you have a goat which is called Capella, and the distance between the Wain and Bootes is equal, exact, to the distance between the Wain and Capella, following the same line. So we have the 2, 3, 4, 5 triangles here, and if you go down into the lion's head, you have the complete 6x7 square encompasses, the 7 Masonic steps leading from the lion's head to the tail of the swan. And this is more than a coincidence. If it's coincidence, that it is legendary. One should write books about it.
No, but Johnson and these guys, they knew about the heaven. Back then, you had to. If you were a sailor, you used the constellations. It's not just for astrology and astronomy, but even for practical purposes. So it's not as if this is a stretch by any kind of the definition.
And one of the prefatory poems to Shakespeare refers to the celestial globe as well.
Exactly.
So
right.
there are so many coincidences here.
So you have now a cross in the sky. So where do you go next?
We have the cross in the sky. We have the map, the cross in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were astronauts, we had a place where we could go. We could go and visit Dene, but that's somewhat impractical.
Yeah.
And I think it's would be difficult for Ben Jonson and Shakespeare and his friends to put something on Dene. Right. So what do they do? What can they do? How can this be a practical, functional map? And we all know the adage, as above, so below. And this is what is taking place here, because on old globes, for instance, the Mercator globe of 1540s, the globe of the Earth, the terrestrial globe, he has painted stars onto this.
Yes.
Because you can have a celestial globe as much as you can have a terrestrial globe. You just have the same kind of grid system with an equator and a meridian, and you just fill in the 360 degrees both ways, and so we have the references.
Yeah, because people remember that back then ships were the big thing. That's how you got around. So this was practical for sailing to have a detailed knowledge of how the globe, how the Earth corresponds to the heaven. So it's not just hermetic, but it's also that, and we know that Bacon and these guys were hermetists. So it's both, actually. It's both practical and symbolical. But continue.
It's wonderful because this the 6x7 square encompasses emblem in the Masonic realm, you would think of that as the Old Covenant, so these Old Testament things, the building of the temple, etc. And where you are led is the top of the cross in the sky, and some people have seen this as a prophecy for Christianity, and that will then be the new covenant, so that you have a unification of the old and the new pact in that star. So it is beautiful symbolism, and you take the 7 steps and you go towards the top, and in the Masonic term you will go to the top of the compasses, and the compasses represents God's mercy. So it's
right.
God.
This is also the 7 steps of alchemy. Yeah. The work in alchemy, actually.
Okay. You have the 7 steps. So you climb the 7 steps, and then you are at the point where you would like to climb. And this is represented in sky with Deneb. And when you look at old maps, you will see that this star Deneb is painted onto the the Earth globe, the terrestrial globe, and it is found at the coast of Canada.
Wow. So if you go to Deneb on the globe, you will end up in Canada, of all places.
You will end up in Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia. And don't we know that there's rumors about the Knight Templars going there?
Yes, there are. And there are rumors, but I really hate to speculate. So what I know is that in 1613, the British were given the grant to Nova Scotia from the French. So in this time we're talking about here, Nova Scotia was English territory.
That's significant.
At least we can know this. So what the Templars did, I can only speculate, but I have a much stronger case to say that there were British traffic here, and they actually owned the place in the key time window that I'm looking at.
Did Bacon have any ties to Canada?
Yes, he was part of a corporation that owned that part of Canada.
Huh.
But I don't think that he ever went there himself. But
At least not alive.
well, maybe he discovered the elixir of life, or
So where in Nova Scotia? How exact can we be about the place?
in the early 1600s, you didn't have the exactitude of perfect longitude, but latitude was precise.
Hmm.
So you know which part latitude-wise, but longitude you have to give a little leeway here.
Okay.
But if we're thinking parallels and knowing that the Tempest, which is the play that holds all these keys, is something taking place on an island, we should look for the coast.
Hmm.
And we have the coastline, and if you look at the latitude and the coastline of Nova Scotia, you will see that there aren't that many islands that you can choose between. So here we have a technical side that needs more time if I'm going to make a good case for it. So I think that we have to jump a little bit here.
Yeah, I think you just describe what it is and tell us what it is, and then people can see the science of it themselves when they follow the series.
Because here there is this other story coming in, because there is a famous island at the coast of Nova Scotia called Oak Island.
Oh, the Pirate Treasure Island.
Yes, the Pirate Treasure Island. And one of the owners of property on Oak Island, he is a land surveyor. His name is Fred Nolan. And he discovered in 1981 that there is a gigantic stone cross on his island. And the curious thing about this stone cross that has arms 360 feet long, and this perfect right angle, etc. It has no boulder in the intersection between the stem and the arms, the beam.
Right.
But there is a big boulder down the stem. So these big boulders, they weigh at least 10 tons each. And the cross is 860 some feet long and 720 feet wide.
So it smells of design, it smells of deliberate, artificial.
As the tour guide on Oak Island, Charles Barkhouse used to say that the Mother Nature is good, but she's not that good.
Right.
So I noticed that the distance between the lower boulders is 294 feet, which is the gematria value of Rhodon, which is rose in Greek. So it's a rose across in a way. And the slope is 60 degrees, very geometric, and 360 degrees of the arms. It makes you think about the full circle, doesn't it? But since the boulder is not in the junction but down the stem, I saw from the description that this cross could possibly fit into be a tree of life. So we have 5 points out of the 10 points, the Sephiroth in the tree of life.
You already had found the tree of life in Shakespeare, right?
Yes, that was later.
Oh, okay.
That was later because I was looking for something on the last page of the Tempest to see if this wonderful play had some final things to say, which it had. But this is quite a long time back in history. We're talking 2001. I noticed this. This was before Shakespeare entered the stage in my life. I was interested in Oak Island, and I saw this video and interview with the friend Nolan, and he told about the cross.
Oh my God, you must have been shocked when you connected these two dots.
Yes, but it took some time because I didn't see the connection really. But I immediately saw that cross could be a tree of life. But I mean, tree of life, Kabbalists on the island, what would that be? But then the theory of Shakespeare and Oak Island is launched, and I was thinking, that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, but there were rumors of Knight Templars coming to Oak Island, and they would know.
Yeah, but I'm just honest there. I thought it was ridiculous.
Okay.
But then when I saw that there are Rosicrucian signatures in Shakespeare, and I knew that the Rosicrucians were Christian Kabbalists, then I was very interested in taking another look at that cross.
Yeah.
So I got hold of a book with the measurements of the cross, and I experimented a little bit, and I found that that cross is easily completed into a 5x8 tree of life. And we know that the tomb of Father RC is 5x8 in size, 5 feet by 8 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another coincidence. And these Sephiroth, they can be counted both ways, from the top and from the bottom.
Right.
And if you count from the bottom, you will see that the 7th Sephiroth is mercy. And I know that we are going towards God's mercy, so there are more coincidences piling up here.
Mm.
And then I go to the last page of the Tempest, because the TT signature in the sonnets has led me on to that, because even if the Tempest begins on page 1, it is the 19th page in the book, so that is a T. T is 19, and you're the TT, and then I go to the 19th page of the Tempest, which is the last page of the play. And then I see that if I count backwards from the end, then when I count 10 words backwards, I find the word crimes.
Uh-huh.
And crimes reversed is semi-RC. And RC has the value of 20, and semi means half. Half of RC is 10.
Mm.
And then I continue, and word 20 is mercy, which is a word with RC in it.
Right.
And then I say, okay, so it's put on the margin, and it's down there to the left. So I'm counting backwards, and okay, maybe I should just turn the page upside down, and then I draw the tree of life as I find it on Oak Island in the 5x8 setup onto the page. And then I see that the Sephirah mercy is exactly where the word mercy is on the page.
So it's a acrostical diagram.
Yeah, at least we have the perfect match there. And the character Prospero, he is encouraging that you should pierce mercy, and then he will be set free.
Mm.
So it's something that you really is encouraged to do. So the Sephirah mercy on Oak Island is in the middle of a swamp.
Let me just interject here, people, that the Sephiroth or Sephirah, that's a point in this diagram called the Tree of Life. It's a 10-point diagram. And Peter here has explained to us now that there is a cross at Oak Island. Oak Island matches with the diagram in the sky that he tracked through the Shakespearean works. And now he's talking about the mercy point in the code in Shakespeare and how it applies to this map, to this place in Oak Island, this cross here. And now he says that if you're looking for this point called mercy, which is not in the cross that Fred Nolan originally discovered, then you end up in what you just called a swamp.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the locals, they say that that swamp has been made artificially. So it didn't used to be a swamp, but someone made it a swamp. And that is the perfect way to conceal something.
Yeah.
And if you're piercing that point, maybe you can pierce a hole into something, and maybe it's just the vault is below the floor of that swamp.
Yeah.
So this is my point X then. So I went to Oak Island in 2003. And I had given up on the swamp because I couldn't do any business in the water. But I went around in the terrain. I trespassed onto Nolan's property. I have asked his forgiveness for this. I had a super DGPS. DGPS is a radio beacon controlled GPS, which is the one that land surveyors use. It's not the normal GPS. It's accurate down to 1 foot. And I confirmed that the cross is the way that Nolan and others had said, and I found 2 points, 2 of these Sephiroth of the Tree of Life, and I dug them, and I discovered that there were similar stones, granite stones, flat on one side, rounded on the other, on both points.
So you've actually found stones on the location which would fit if this was a Tree of Life symbol and not just a cross.
Yes, and I also ordered a backhoe to come and help us on one of these spots, just to find out if these kind of stones were typically lying around all over the place. But he was digging in a radius of 3 meters from the stone and a depth of 2 meters, and he didn't find anything.
No.
So it was just there where it should be.
With artificial symbols on them.
I will say that there are 3 dots on it, but I'm not that certain if it could be something that just was falling out of the stone. It's hard to put too much faith.
Yeah, but isn't it the same on all the stones or on other stones? Markings?
Just two stones, and the other flat stone that was found at the Victory Sephira was weather beaten, so it's impossible to say if there were any dots on that. But what they share is the same pink granite, and it's flat on one side and rounded on the other, and about the same size.
Yeah, they can see it for themselves in these areas. But how many stones have we found of the Tree of Life? It's supposed to be 10 in total. How many do we have today? How many is discovered?
So 7 have been discovered.
Wow. You're almost there.
The 2 more that we lack, apart from Mercy, of course, they are on Nolan's property, and he will not allow us to look for them.
Right.
So,
but Mercy, haven't you found there is something there? Because you went in a boat, didn't you? You didn't give up just because of some water. So what did you do?
We went out onto the swamp, and we pierced the ground.
The Mercy.
To see, yes.
Yeah.
And it is peculiar. It's not a typical swamp.
No.
So I agree reluctantly with those who say that the swamp has been man-made.
Yeah, but you can see it from above. It's perfectly formed like a triangle.
It is, and what you see is that the beach is different from the normal beach on Oak Island. There are no big boulders. They're just uniform cobblestones. So it's very slick compared to the rest of Oak Island. And also, the owners have found stumps of tree on the bottom. And of course, these stumps could have been flushed over the ledge during storms. But the age of the stumps, they have tested it with carbon-14 dating. And they say that those stumps, they were dying somewhere between 1460 and 1640. So it's right in the window here. But if they were stumps that had naturally floated, then we know that the water level in the 1600 was about 1 meter lower. So it's even harder for a tree stump to float across over the ledge. So I find it hard to believe that this was what happened. I think that tree was growing on the bottom where there is now a swamp. So it is an artificial swamp. So what else has been discovered there?
Yep.
You have magnetic stones or something out there that makes compasses go haywire. So you lose the direction of north.
That's so fascinating.
And they have on the ice gone over it with the most sophisticated metal detectors available, and they find that there are huge signals indicating non-ferrous metal down there. And they found a coin from 1652 on the bottom where Mercy is. Which is a little late for me, but I can't know why would someone want to go out there. So I think that the rumors of something having been out there, was still around, and some later visitors went out there and maybe tossed a coin onto it for good luck or whatever.
For instance, but let me interject very quickly for people who wouldn't know that the people have been digging in Oak Island for a century because it's probably the world's most famous treasure island. There's this insistence that there's something there, and there's a lot of theories and the Knight Templars theories, but we should try to substantiate the hypothesis that fits your discovery. And then we could start with Bacon, because if what has been found here, you locating the treasure map that has been found in Shakespeare, and you located it so pinpointedly to this island, actually, haven't you, by the way, drawn a diagram from no, that's not you, but someone else has drawn a diagram how Oak Island fits with the larger ley lines?
There is a guy called Øystein Bruno Larsen, and he saw that the 60-degree slope of the cross can be continued all the way into Jerusalem.
Right, and there's someone called Kurt Lindahl. He's done the same thing too. But anyway, so if we have something buried here, this may be the entrance or it may be the vault itself. But let's look at Bacon then. Could he have done this?
He probably wouldn't have done it himself unless he faked his own death and went west. But he had a young guy called Thomas Bushell, who was a part of his household. And he left England for 2 periods, and combining 5 years away. And when he came back, he began a career as a mining expert, and he was an expert in manipulating water. So maybe he experienced something while he was away. So if he masterminded this himself, or if he joined the Spanish mining engineers, for instance, that is pure speculations. But he writes in his books in his old days that he has completed his master's Solomon's house. Right. This sounds very Masonic, doesn't it?
It sounds like he got instructions from Bacon.
But since we have a short time, I'd like to talk about what this is, in my opinion. So this cross. To me, it is a unification of the old and the new pact in the shape of a templum. Not a temple in our normal way of looking at a temple, but the original classical templum, which is a geometric layout on the ground that is the foundation for the edifice that later is to be what we call the temple. So this templum is the third temple, if you like, since the temple in Jerusalem was the second temple that was raised by the Romans in the year 70. I say that the lamp that is described in Fama Fraternitatis, which is not the sun but had learned to shine from the sun, that is the same description as we read in the Kabbalistic book, the Zohar, when it is describing one of the items that the Romans looted in year 70. That is the candle light, the candelabra, the menorah, the 7-branched candle.
The menorah, the sacred object.
Yes. So I think that this was something that had come into the hands of King James. And then he became King of England and Scotland, and then they inherited Nova Scotia, and they saw all kinds of possibilities for making a new temple.
I thought Bacon was the owner of Oak Island at that. What was the name of the island back then?
The first British name is Gloucester Isle, but Bacon was part of the ownership, but it is on British hands. So when I say King James he owned it, I mean it's England who controls Nova Scotia.
Didn't you find references to Gloucester, and also you found another reference?
Sure, but this is the technical part that we just leave it. We are not going there for this radio show. If people are interested, then by all means try to look up the book. But it's not even in the films because it's so technical. But it's beautiful if you see it. But yeah. Okay. So this is the third temple. This is the new temple, and the reason I say this is that the name that Ben Jonson gave Shakespeare, the Sweet Swan of Avon, we have reversal all the time here, and we have Greek and Latin letters interchanged. So if you take the word swan, S-W-A-N, and you reverse it, then you get naos, because the W is of course an omega in Greek. So it's a Greek word. Naos is a Greek word, means temple.
Yeah.
And then you have nova, which straightforward is Avon. Nova, new temple.
Right. Sweet swan.
And then you have sweet, 5 letters. And in this Greek and English cipher system that Bacon used, we have not touched upon that, but that is demonstrable. It's no doubt that they use it. I have a copy of a letter that demonstrates that he did. Then the H is the E, it's eta, and the W is an omega. So you reverse sweet into theos, which is God. So new temple of God, the swan.
Right.
Sweet swan of Avon is the new temple of God, and they constructed it. The masons, they really built the temple. They just didn't talk about it. This is the new Solomon's temple, if you like, but the new temple at least.
Which sounds like a good place to move the stuff that was in the old temple.
It's this perfect place, and it's also the core, the foundation stone of the new continent, the new coveted land of milk and honey, just as Israel was for the Hebrews. So,
and we all know how important America was as a project for the Masons, all the Masonic founders. There's lots of books out there how the new continent of America should be this utopia, this new Atlantis, this project for the new age, so to speak.
We do, don't we, Al? We all know this. So with Washington and everything. So this is a Masonic and maybe also very real temple foundation stone, which has the menorah and the manuscripts of William Shakespeare, and also possibly an ark, not necessarily the ark, but I think that the Templars went to Ethiopia and snatched the Ethiopian ark and brought it along as well.
But didn't you find references to both the ark and menorah in the tomb of Shakespeare?
Sure, but we don't have time.
We can't cover it, no. But we should mention it, because there's so much we haven't mentioned. So just when we now lay out the hypothesis scenario, then remember it's built on much more than we rambled about now. So we have the menorah in the tomb, possibly. We have the ark, possibly. And you mentioned we have the manuscript. Some of the people who digged for treasure, didn't they find some mercury, quicksilver preserved pages? Could you just talk shortly about that? Because that's significant.
They found mercury in the money pit. And we know that Francis Bacon described mercury as a useful way of preserving paper, because it will keep air and moist away from the paper.
Exactly.
And they also found a tiny piece of paper deep down into the so-called money pit at 153 feet, almost 154, the same number as the sonnets. Down they found a cement box, and inside of it they brought up a piece of paper. They thought it was parchment, but I believe that it is paper.
And that would stand water if they used Bacon's method to preserving it with mercury, right?
Yeah, but they did find traces of mercury in the money pit, and they also have found on the island a dump of pottery flasks with mercury residue in.
Wow.
So
they was up to something. Yeah.
Yes, lots of evidence.
Indications. And I'll say all the Spanish coins they found, if the English Bacon people arranged this, they would have to use Spanish sailors, because they were cheap in labor, and they wouldn't understand what they were talking about between themselves.
It makes lots of sense, because in Almaden in Spain, they had these important quicksilver mines, and they were famous for having used slaves and also convicts as labor. So I think that this was the way they did it. They sailed down to Spain, a few Englishmen, and as few as possible, and they teamed up with the Spanish. They went over, they did the work with the convicts and slaves and mercury from Almaden mines, And maybe some Spanish heard about this and visited the island later on and tossed a coin onto it. Or maybe they were out there trying to open the vault, but gave up. Who knows?
Or it could have been a preservance mission, because I don't know when this was lost, but in the beginning they must have had a continuing line of knowing what was there.
Well, I think that they needed to check that it worked, because if this is an artificial swamp, then it was lined with clay, and I think that they would like to know that it really filled with water,
Right.
that it did the trick. So I have been thinking that it was already a swamp and that they had this kind of inverted cofferdam around it, so that they could dig in the dry soil, and then when everything was completed, they just removed the dam, and then water would cover it immediately. But maybe it wasn't so. Maybe they constructed a dam from scratch.
Yeah, it belongs to the story to say that it is in a very elaborate structure over there with traps and everything. You'll see when you watch the clips. But the thing is, there could have already been some kind of caves and structures there. For instance, from the Templars, or natural, that they just exploited and adjusted and tweaked, so to speak.
That is very possible. So when things happened is very difficult to say, but it must the cross must have been laid out when they used feet, and so we can't go that many centuries back in time. So the Templars would have used another measurement, because it only comes to life when you look upon it with English looking glasses, with the distances having
miles
and sacred numbers. Like the top distance is 147 feet, which is 147, the Euclid 345 triangle, and also 147 pages in the first edition of Fama Fraternitatis, and the book written by Thomas Bushell, the mining expert, when he arrived back in 1628, 147 pages. So, no, sorry, that was 173 pages, 17 and 3, sorry. But at least these numbers, they come alive when you see them in feet. And so it must have been an English construction.
So what we got here, people, is that we may have a treasure place where the menorah is buried, where even the ark is buried, and even the original missing manuscripts of Shakespeare, perfectly preserved in a method that was known back then among these people, which works. And we find traces of all these things too, so it's not just taken out of our back ends, but it's actually corroborated by finds. Now, in addition to all this, we may even have Francis Bacon's own body.
We may, because his grave is empty.
Right.
And if he was, for all practical purposes, the father CRC himself, then it fits with the Fama that he is buried with his book and the lamp on this 5x8 site.
So when you see these people, when you see it, you will understand, because this isn't the medium to describe such a thing. But you have a movie. Actually, you have one movie that was in English, the one with Robert Crumpton. But that's not out in the commercial market, or is it?
It is for Scandinavian viewers. You can find it or used. I'm not sure if it's still on, but look it up on Vimeo, the video on demand section there. It used to be there, but it will resurface shortly. But what you can do is to go to Vimeo, and it's probably not a great surprise that the 4-part TV series is called Sweet Swan of Avon.
Yeah, right.
So you just look for Sweet Swan of Avon, and it's free of charge.
Don't bother. Just go to the guest presentation at our page. We'll link all these things. You don't have to look for it. We'll link to all of it.
Yes, and when you have seen this series, if you are hungry for more, then you go to Amazon and you spend $4 and buy my ebook. It's only available as an ebook. It's not a published on demand book. So
what's it called?
it is called Oak Island and the Treasure Map in Shakespeare. So it's written. The title is an iambic pentameter, just like Shakespeare would have used.
Nice touch.
Yeah.
But this book, does this outline your whole adventure, or just the Oak Island part, or is it just an introduction? How big is it? How deep does it go?
The ebook is the whole thing, but it's not everything. It is user friendly, so it's something that you could read in a shorter time.
You don't have to be a Yola to read it. Okay, that's reassuring.
No, I think it has 30 reviews on Amazon and an average of at least 4 stars, so people tend to like it.
Okay, that's excellent. And for Scandinavians listeners, they could also look up, we mentioned in the beginning Erlend Loe, the famous Norwegian author. He wrote a book with you called The Organist.
And that is published in 7 countries, so you may be lucky. So it's if you are Swedish or Danish or Finnish or Dutch or Russian or Ukrainian, Polish, then you'll find it in your language.
Just not English.
Not English, because the reaction is, oh God, not another Shakespeare.
Not another one. But hey, the Canadian listeners, they should pay attention because this is in your own backyard, people. Well, the Canadians are probably aware, but all you others, there is an ongoing digging there right now, actually. And there is this series, very popular series called
The Curse of Oak Island, and so far it has 8 million viewers. So
yes, and it goes on History Channel, and it's 2 seasons. And you visited in season 1.
I did.
And in season 2, they went back to that place, and still they haven't managed to really check out that area, but they're going to, and I have found some stuff so far. So when you've gone through all the Peter stuff, you can complete it by watching what those cowboys out there are doing. They're not 100% behind Peter, but they know about, he's briefed them, he's showed them, so they can't afford not to check it out. So it's a part of this big story. And I want also to tell you, I don't know if you know this even, Peter, but the Masons have actually, there is a claim about Canada and the Masons that there is old Masonic traditions in Canada that prefaces even the Canadian state. So there's a sort of a Canadian version of Masonry. We can't go into details about this, but it corroborates this whole story.
I didn't know. But it's fun to see that so many of people involved with the history of digging on Oak Island have been Freemasons.
That too. Even you who discovered this used to be a Mason once upon a time, right?
Sure. I consider myself a Mason because I have been initiated. It's just that I'm not part of the registry and I'm not paying the fees.
But that didn't have a bearing on this, did it?
Oh yes, I wouldn't have known anything if I hadn't gone through my Masonic training. So when I give talks about this, which I do with pleasure, I used to say that the map has been sent in one direction and the toolbox for interpreting the map has been sent in another direction.
Right.
And the map is in Shakespeare and the toolbox is in Freemasonry.
Right. And then it took a guy like you to connect those dots.
Yes, someone, a Norwegian with no respect for culture and who's a maniac when it comes to finding the answer.
On the contrary, I'd venture that if we're onto something here, we're actually fulfilling our ancestors' wish. So sometimes culture can freeze into dogma, and then someone needs to break it and make a new pact, a new covenant.
There is a curious synchronicity here. You're talking about your number and 5 numbers, and you have 5 letters that line up in a very hard to find the adjective here, but when Bacon is talking about his mercury preservation method in Sylva Sylvarum, his book that was published when he was dead, he refers to the first king of Rome who was buried with his books, and they were preserved not in mercury but in some kind of beeswax or candle wax.
Wow.
But his name was Numa Pompilius, or Numa P. And if you reverse Numa P, what do you get, Al?
Uma.
Numa, N-U-M-A, and then P. P is the initial. This should be reversed.
P is the initial. So you reverse it.
And then what do you get?
Pamu.
P. Ammon.
P. Ammon. Very Masonic.
You just lack the Zon, and then you have my name, or Zen.
Oh, I was thinking of Ammon as in Egyptian god.
Ah, but it's my name. P is for Peter. And
okay, so
but I see what I see. I mean, I think it's funny, but
it is. But hey, if the invisible hand is involved, why not? Why not? Someone has to do it.
It is there. It is my P and the first four letters in my name, and I can't do anything about it, and that is what the bacon uses to.
That's so funny.
To describe this. And on page 131 in Tragedies, 131 is the value of Freemasonry, and the map to Gloucester Island is on page 131 in the history section. We have not touched about it, but the 131 in the Tragedies is the beginning of Macbeth, and there they talk about the Norway king and the powers of Norway, and they also talk about one other thing. They give a name to the Norway king.
No.
The name of the Norway king is the name of the father of a royal crown princess. So they call the Norway king for Svenno.
People don't know who Svenno is, but this is.
But he's famous for Norwegians.
Yeah, this is funny. This is comical.
So
it's like God pulling a joke.
Yeah, it is.
But you know, Peter, there are these conspiracy theories out there. I bet I can already hear some of them saying, no, this is a huge Masonic plot. It's not a coincidence. This is ordered by the Masons, and that's why you, with your name, and it's all planned, it's all pre-planned. But you know what? It doesn't matter what you believe. If you think this is a coincidence, if you think this is some kind of invisible divine will, if you think this is deliberate by Bacon, or if you even think it's some kind of contemporary group controlling the world, in any case, if there's something there, we'll find it. And that's the real mystery here, to see what's there.
And the treasure here, or the good thing, this story is so beautiful, so well knit, and even if it turns out to be nothing, the story is beautiful by itself, and it's something that has value. So that is why I tell it.
It's true. And why you began, perfect circle, Peter. You began by worrying a little bit if you are right.
Yes.
Could you just now update us why this is a big deal?
Because I fear that for many people, that cross on Oak Island will not suffice as a third temple. If suddenly objects that used to be part of both the first and the second temple, if we're talking about the Ark of the Covenant or a version of it, or the menorah from Herod's temple, if they suddenly pop up, some people will see this as a sign from God that now they must build the third temple, and they know perfectly well where they want to build that temple, and
Jerusalem.
That is the place where the Muslims have their mosque, the third most sacred place to the Muslims, and this spells W-A-R.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah. So therefore, it's good to tell the story, but hey, I don't want to be proved truth there.
Because of the Jews too have a claim there. Both the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims.
Yes, but it only takes one crazy guy to do something. I mean, if someone blows up the Dome of the Rock mosques, then I don't think that is a good thing for world peace.
No, there are fundamentalists, and they will interpret this as some kind of fated, Yeah,
and they will probably feel that they are
entitled,
selected by God to accomplish this, and now is the time. And people want Jesus to come back, and he will not come before the third temple is built. So Christians will join in this chorus as well.
But do you think that the Masons, Bacon, and all these people who's behind this, do you think they intended for this to be generally known, or just for their own people?
Ooh, Oh,
Hard question, but what do you think?
I think that they would know the character of the human, and the character of the human is such that if you have a story as good as this one, you cannot just keep it to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Plus, in pharma, they did promise that it would be mainstream one day, didn't they?
Yeah, so let's hope that manhood will cope with this. And in the meantime, let's hope that it's difficult to get a definite answer about that swamp.
Yeah.
That the producers of The Curse of Oak Island will like to have 3 or 4 more seasons before they solve the mystery.
Yeah, they're really slowly torturing us. They are. They are milking it for all it's worth. This is commercial.
But that is good for business. The CEO of Prometheus, he told me that he was foreseeing that he could make at least 100 hours of television on Oak Island.
Wow. Yeah, but that just goes to show that they have found something. And so
this was before the first season.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I'm not on speaking terms with them now. They won't answer anything from me because I teamed up with the wrong guys. I think that this theory, if it has any merit, it's so important that politicians need to step up and protect the island from people drilling holes, because these guys are experts in drilling holes. These are oil drillers. So
so all our Canadians listeners, you should alert your locals to get some kind of protection of this place, and hopefully also a public investigation. It should be checked out. So if they find something, I hope it will be archaeological researched and preserved.
Yes, this is the point there. So not necessarily that the government pays for it, but to change the legislation so that they need to consult with an archaeologist before they do things, because there is a void in the law in Nova Scotia that there is something called the Oak Island Act that will make it different from the other parts of Oak Island, from Nova Scotia, and even in Canada. In that you do not need to talk to the archaeologist before you do something there if you have the treasure trove license, which these guys have. So there has been a bill of law called Bill 40 that was launched, and I supported this bill and teamed up with a politician over there, and because I did this, then I was some kind of a Judas to the owners, and they refused to talk to me.
I see.
But I believe that as long as my theory has any merit, then it is so important that you move ahead responsibly and slowly, and consider what the next step should be, and that this is not dictated by someone who is producing television. But then again, this producer wants to produce season after season, so maybe this is the best protection. Who knows?
Good point. Right now they're digging at what's called the money pit. I'll just at the end here inject that there is a plate they found when they dig there. The plate is gone missing, or a stone. But you have this Swedish researcher who claims to have found a confirmation of Francis Bacon even there.
Daniel.
So Daniel, yes. Just a short call out to him. I know you're not probably 100% behind that theory, but if it's right, it does corroborate your theory at least.
We have the same hero.
Yeah. Let's end with that good note. So, we've been talking with Petter Amundsen. Well, it's probably sounded like two crazy Norwegians rambling and ranting, but I dare you to take a look at the links I'm putting out. Just start with the first episode, and if it doesn't make sense, or if it's boring or whatever, then by all means move on. But I can say this with satisfaction because I know people get hooked. Here in Norway, you become some kind of a local hero to. It's very dividing stuff, by the way. Either they love you or they hate you. You've noticed, huh?
Sure.
So it's so filled with emotion, but it's the human story all over again. Yeah. Thank you for coming on and trying to put this into words with us, Peter. It's been very interesting.
Thank you, Al, for giving me the opportunity, and I hope that it hasn't been too confusing for the the poor listener, but it is a primer in that when you look at the video, if you feel like it, then it will be some kind of repetition, and then it's much easier to follow.
Yeah, and more depth and more easily vision. So at least we hope we have given them a little appetizer.
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay, then I can just say thank you.
Thank you. You too. The pleasure is all mine.
Yeah. If you want to see some of these extraordinary codes for yourself, just follow the links under the YouTube clips of the show. And of course, as always, if you go to our presentation of Peter at our website, next to his bio you'll find several links to the books and documentaries in question. The material covering his discoveries and work so far are the book he wrote together with the Norwegian author Erlend Loe called The Organist, which you may find in your own language if you're lucky, and which will be published in English under another title in the near future. This book is the most thorough account of the journey of Petter Amundsen's research. Then there's the simpler one, which focuses more on the Templar treasure part of the story, called Oak Island and the Treasure Map in Shakespeare, which is available for a few dollars as an ebook. Then there's the media documentaries, and pay attention now, folks, because they ought to be viewed in a specific chronology. You start with the TV series in 4 parts called Sweet Swan of Avon, Shakespeare's Hidden Codes, and that's available in English, which we link to. Then there's the follow-up, a movie called Shakespeare, The Hidden Truth. This one is available at demand on Vimeo, but not yet with English subtitles. However, over half of the movie is spoken in English, so if you've already seen the rest, you can make out most of it, and of course it's as visual as the rest of this matter. The right sequence to watch the next unfoldment of events is to either watch Season 1 of the popular ongoing History Channel series The Curse of Oak Island, or, if you cannot digest that somewhat tabloid and sensational format, just watch the 2 episodes from Season 1 which is concerned with Peter's approach. Again, we'll put out links for this. Next, there is an update for about half an hour called The Secret of the Island, which is not yet turned into an English version, but like the movie, partly consists of spoken English, so it's still possible to understand for non-Norwegians too. And finally, if you're hooked, like most become, then there's the 2nd season of the History Channel series, The Curse of Oak Island, where they make another attempt to investigate the Mercy Point in the swamp. Season 3 of that series is not yet released at the time of this forum, but is in the works. Apart from all this, there's also smaller clips available for the real junkies, both on the Facebook site of Amundsen's work and some other places online. We shall try to link to most of it. Only time will tell if and what is found and excavated on this strange island that once was called Arcadia, where the legend alleges that Sinclair brought the Holy Grail. Later named Gloucester Island after patron of the Freemasons Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester, who was also called the Swan. And finally Oak Island, to where a team of Bacon's quote-unquote Rosicrucian group followed his plan and brought such relics as the menorah, the Ark of the Covenant, and maybe even the Shakespearean original manuscripts, if we are to believe the codes Petter has uncovered. Of one thing you can be sure, there will be more updates regarding this ongoing real-life mystery, especially from the History Channel team, but we may just get more takes on it from Peter and his team too. Tune in to our next program in this series of esoteric mysteries, where we'll deal more with Oak Island. Thanks for joining us through this strange phenomenon, difficult as it is to make sense of via audio, but nonetheless we hope it was to your pleasing. you can help out with donations, but beyond that, it is also important to spread our programs to your network, be that through Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or other channels. Remember, social media sites spread files based on a so-called activity algorithm, meaning shares, likes, comments, etc. So the more you interact and spread our programs, the more visible they become for those who have not yet discovered the forum. Let's thank those listeners who's supported us thus far. You are responsible for keeping the forum alive. Your host today has been me, Al, now signing off with the Borealis team. Be seeing you.
Who is number one?